At 4:10 this afternoon, Donald Trump re-emerged into the public eye for the first time since the shooting in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. As he made his way toward the podium, he struggled to summon any real energy, dragging himself across the stage, stopping every few steps to catch his breath and soak in the applause as his theme song played in the background. And for nearly 90 minutes, the President of the United States delivered a rambling, grievance-filled spectacle to one of the most loyal audiences he has left, the deeply red stronghold of the villages. But even in a room designed to adore him, surrounded by people who were already on his side, he couldn't hold it together. He lashed out at the sound crew mid-speech, spiraled into a racist and deeply disturbing made-up story about a sitting congresswoman and her brother sleeping together, mocked the very people cheering for him by insisting he was smarter than they were, and then veered into a bizarre tangent about the First Lady begging him not to dance to what he called the gay national anthem. "Darling, please don't dance. It's not presidential," he said, before brushing it off with, "It may not be presidential, but I'm leading by 20 points in the polls or something." It would be easy to write off this whole speech as just another concerning moment of Trump once again suffering from a possible cognitive issue, but that isn't what we saw. It was something more deliberate than that. His limits aren't slipping, they're gone. He's operating like someone who no longer believes they apply to him at all. Like someone who thinks he can say anything and do anything, and face no consequences. And if this is what he's willing to show us in public, out in the open, with cameras rolling and a room full of people watching, then it's worth asking what's happening when none of us are there to see it. What is the leader of what used to be called the free world doing when he's not performing for us, when it's just him and the people who never tell him no? Coverage of the speech described him as unburdened, and that's exactly right. Because what we watched wasn't a man losing control. It was a man who has decided he no longer needs to pretend to have any. He is not unhinged, he is unleashed. And he's showing us, piece by piece, exactly how far he intends to take this. He opened with this: "I shouldn't be here. There was just an attempt, I won't use the word, an attempt, they say, on my life. I should be indoors at a secure facility where I can quietly, beautifully, and safely play out my term, destroying everything that comes in our way. Like bad countries that want to get nuclear weapons." He said it casually. Almost like it was nothing. The crowd laughed. And then he just kept going, like the President of the United States describing his presidency as destroying everything in his path was a normal thing to say out loud. He brought up the assassination attempt, made himself the victim, and in the same breath told a room full of American seniors he should be allowed to destroy whatever he wants. And based on his track record, we need to take him at his word. He spent several minutes acknowledging his most devoted followers, a group he calls the Front Row Joes, people who travel to every rally, hundreds of times, and stand in the front row. He said, "They're all over. I can't get rid of them. They are sick individuals, but we love them." He bragged that more than 51 million American seniors now pay a federal tax rate of 0. And then, in almost the same breath, he looked out at that same crowd and said, "I don't happen to be a senior. I'm much younger than you. I'm a much, much younger man than you. Look at you old guys. Wouldn't you like to be my age? It's young, vital, vibrant." He is 79 years old. He dragged himself across that stage 20 minutes earlier. And then he stood there and talked down to a room full of people who showed up to support him, calling them old, telling them they wished they could be him. And they laughed. They loved it. That's the relationship he has with his base. He insults them, and they reward him for it. He's trained them to see his contempt as charisma. And it's one of the most disturbing dynamics I've ever watched play out in American politics. Then came the media section. He pointed to the press cameras and said, "Look at all the fake news back there. Watch. That's a lot of fake news. That's a lot of fake news. That's a lot of fakers." He then announced that studies show he gets 93% negative coverage on the evening news, and declared that this proves the media has lost all credibility. Nobody believes them. Very simple. And then he explained his own philosophy of communication, which he calls the weave, as if it were something to be proud of, giving an example of how he uses it that highlights taking incoherent and unrelated jargon to deflect. "I love the weave because the weave is great. Someday, I won't come back, and they'll say, 'All right, he shot.' That's the weave. I call it the weave because you get a lot of stories into one little sentence. What he is describing, in his own words, is the technique he uses to hold an audience's attention, jumping from topic to topic, threading unrelated stories together, going so far out that people lose track of where he started, and then circling back. It's the reason his speeches feel like a barrage. What he is doing is intentional. He's not just rambling, he's weaving. And he just told us that he manipulates the narrative, while calling the actual press fake news and accusing them of manufacturing stories about him. This is not a man who believes in a free press. This is a man who has spent years systematically dismantling trust in journalism so that his version of reality, the weave, his fabrications and propaganda fill the space where facts used to live. And then, mid-speech, the microphone volume wasn't to his liking. And the man who holds the nuclear codes lost it. Tell them to turn up the microphone. Will you please turn up the mic? You know, I hate it. You pay these guys a lot of money, and then you get up and the mic isn't on properly, and then they want their money, and I don't believe in paying people to do a bad job. I only like to pay, I pay early. And I'm screaming my ass off because the mic is no good. Turn the mic up, please. Amazing. After his meltdown, he switched directions and eventually introduced Dr. Oz with these words. We have a man here who knows more about Medicaid, Medicare, medical crap than any human being. Where is Dr. Oz? Medical crap. That is what the President of the United States called the healthcare policy that millions of seniors depend on to survive. He then admitted openly that he doesn't engage with any of the details. All I want to do is take care of you. I don't care. I said, you work out the details, but I did say give them the max. That's all I care about. He didn't mean to reveal as much as he did, but with no limits and no impulse control, it was bound to happen. He is not running the government. He is performing the presidency while the people around him run it because he doesn't want to do the boring parts that come with the job. He then pivoted to Minnesota and his usual claims about Medicare fraud. And this is where the speech took a turn I haven't been able to stop thinking about all night. Without any real transition, he said this. Look at the wonderful country. It's a beautiful country. You should try it sometime, Somalia. It's a beautiful place. It's got no government. It's got no military. It's got no anything. It's got one thing that's really strong. Crime. It's filthy dirty, disgusting dirty. It's a horrible place. They come here. And Ilhan Omar, you ever hear of her? She heads it. He described a sitting member of Congress like she's personally responsible for the conditions of an entire nation. And then he kept going. She comes here from Somalia and tells us how to run the United States of America. She says, the Constitution gives me certain rights, and I demand that I be given these rights. Get the hell out. What a phony. He's telling a room full of Americans that a member of Congress, elected by her constituents, who swore an oath to the same Constitution he did, should get the hell out for invoking her rights. And then he went further. And then she married a brother to come in. I don't know. I believe she married her brother, which is totally illegal. Although it's a lovely couple, actually, but it's a little bit on the illegal side. Darling, I love you very much. Good night, brother. Let's go to bed. This is a lie. It has always been a lie. It's been investigated, debunked, and dismissed over and over again. And the President of the United States told it anyway, stopping to act it out, doing voices, and making very strange hand gestures and movements for a room full of people who laughed along with him. This isn't politics or a policy disagreement. This is a sitting president making up a perverted story about a member of Congress and performing it as entertainment. I have never seen anything like this from someone in this office. He then turned his attention to Gavin Newsom, and used that as a launching pad to talk about himself for several minutes. He suggested Newsom take a cognitive test, and then announced, I took 3 of them, aced all of them, by the way. I'm the only president to take a cognitive test because I don't think Obama could pass it. I don't, Biden, give me a break. You know, the first question is very easy. It's a lion, a giraffe, a bear, and a shark. They say, which one is the bear? And everybody says, oh, 30 questions. Very standard test, but very tough around those last 10 questions. Not too many people, even in this very room, could answer those last 10. He just told a room full of his most loyal followers, that he was smarter than they were and that most of them probably couldn't pass a basic cognitive test. And they applauded. He then described the moment he got his score. When I got the score, the doctor said, "I've never seen." They said, "He's a mad genius." I didn't mind that too much. Then they said, "He's a horrible human being." I don't like that much. Then they said, "He's really not a smart person at all." I really hated that. When Trump first started boasting about his cognitive tests, physicians stepped forward to add clarity to the subject, saying that these are not routinely given. It is not a standard part of a physical exam. It happens when there is a concern. He keeps bringing this up himself, over and over, in elaborate detail, to every audience he can find. A genuinely confident man does not do this, but a man who is working very hard to convince everyone around him, and perhaps himself, that there is nothing to worry about, does. And then he described the math portion of the test to the crowd, walking them through the multiplication and division and addition in real time, clearly proud that he could follow along. He said the doctor called him a mad genius. He described his decision to take the test as a moment of bravery. He has been president for a year and a half and he is still at a retirement community in Florida, relitigating his cognitive test results. He introduced the drug pricing section with a story about a friend. He described this friend as extremely fat, very obnoxious, a very unattractive individual, and highly neurotic, semi-controlled. He said, "Usually I like to say I like a neurotic person, but it has to be controlled. This guy's only semi." This is how the President of the United States talks about his friends. He announced that starting July 1st, Medicare will cover weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy for $50 a month, which is genuinely meaningful news for millions of people, and then spent several minutes seething about Joe Biden, taking credit for insulin price reductions that Trump said he originated. "I was standing there seething," he said. "I was watching television. I was so angry. I said, I did it, and I didn't get credit for it." He talked about the economy. He claimed grocery prices are way down, used car prices are way down, eggs are down by 4 or 5 times. He claimed he secured $18 trillion in investment in his first 11 months. And then he said this, "Think of it, it's really almost 100 times more if you really multiply it out properly." He went back to his alternative math again. Because 18 trillion is not 100 times more than 1 trillion. It is 18 times more. He said this slowly, confidently, to a room full of people, and nobody corrected him. Because nobody in that room is there to correct him. They are there to cheer. He addressed the Iran war, saying this about any American who questions whether we are winning. "I believe it's treasonous." Okay, you want to know that? It's treasonous. He called American citizens who question his war treasonous. He held a crowd poll on whether Biden's nickname should be Sleepy Joe or Crook Joe. He attacked Democrats for using the word affordability as a political message, calling a lawmaker a sleazebag for focusing on it ahead of the midterms. And then he said this about the Democrats' economic messaging. "They've got one good line of bullshit." That is how the President of the United States spent today. Talking to seniors in front of the large words golden years. I've been writing these posts every night for over a year now, and I realized today that something in me has shifted. I used to feel it when he said something monstrous, something that made the rest of the world look at us with pity or horror. I would cringe. It was physical. I don't feel that anymore. Now I watch him, the words just move through me, and I write them down and move on to the next thing. And that numbness concerns me, not because I've stopped caring, because I haven't, but because I know that numbness isn't a side effect of what's happening. It's the point. Make it constant and relentless. Make it so overwhelming that even the people paying the closest attention start to go numb. And if it's happening to me, someone who is watching all of this every single day, then imagine what it's doing to people who are only catching pieces of it. We can't go numb. That's exactly what they're counting on. And maybe that is one of the most important things we can do in this moment. Not let ourselves go numb and just accept the absurdity of it all. We're all trying to hold it together, to stay steady, because this isn't something that's going to be over quickly. And even if he doesn't raise our blood pressure the way he used to, we haven't lost the ability to see what he's doing for what it is. But this is going to be a challenge, and it's something we need to watch for in each other. Because the people most at risk of checking out aren't the ones who stopped caring, They're the ones who care deeply but feel overwhelmed. The ones who don't always vote because they think it won't make a difference, or that it's already decided. Those are the people who matter most right now. Not the ones already with us, the ones who are one conversation away. Find out if they're registered. Help them get registered if they're not. Ask if they'll need a ride when the time comes, or someone to walk them through it. Be that person. Make it your job between now and November. We have to make this too big to rig. That is how we answer a man who has decided he is untouchable. Not with outrage alone, with numbers. And we're not alone in this work. Because outside that election rally he held today, there were hundreds of people who showed up to protest him on barely 2 days' notice. They showed up for a president who wasn't showing up for them in the ways a president should. They understood what was at stake. They didn't go numb. They got up and went. That is the answer to everything we saw today, not despair, presence and the stubborn, daily refusal to let any of this become normal, even when normalization is pulling at all of us every single day. He is not invincible. He went to the safest room in the country today and still fell apart in front of everyone. He can feel what's coming. The walls are closing in, and even he can't deny it. That is why I still have hope for America. And you should, too.